Hello, fellow horror geeks. Welcome to the cityofgeek.com presents 100 Days of Horror. My name is Bob, and I'm going to talk today about three movies in the course of 100 Days of Horror, days 23, 24, and 25. The Howlings 5, 6, and 7. Three movies that I've owned for a little while, finally getting around to watching. I was thinking about doing a seen them all video of the entire series, kind of going back, watching 1, 2, and 3, then watching 7 and the remake-ish. The rebirth, whatever the hell it is, after this, but decided ultimately I couldn't find 7 been released commercially in the United States outside the VHS tape. So I just had to stop it at that because 3, 4, and 5, 4, 5, and 6 are so awful that I really didn't want to go into 7. Evan Peterson, also one of the people who works on 100 Days of Horror, talked about how bad it is. Now, 100 Days of Horror, if you're watching this, because I was watching Howling reviews for whatever reasons long with you. 100 Days of Horror, something we do here at cityofgeek.com, in which myself, Kim, Cody, Tony, and many of our readers watch 100 horror films that we haven't seen in the days leading up to Halloween. 100 days, wouldn't you know? And we post what we're talking about on the Facebook group dedicated to that. You can find a link to that by looking down below. You see cityofgeek.com. That goes to the main master post for that, and then you can follow the link from there and update the master post what everyone else is watching. I'm not sure if anyone's actually watching these video reviews. A couple of them got some hits, but mostly probably Robin and Cody, occasionally Jennifer, to watching it. So thank you, Robin, Cody, and whoever else might be watching these. But it's just still fun to do, whether anyone watches them or not. But yeah, as I said, we're getting a couple days, so you never know. So today we are looking at 3 of the Howling movies. As I noted, I was thinking about doing a Seen Them All. Seen Them All is a series that I occasionally do, in which I watch the entirety of a franchise, talking about each of the entries as we go through. I haven't posted one in a while, but I have a couple that I've been working on that I will post as I finish them. But you can find the link to that elsewhere on the site. Maybe if I remember, I'll put up the link to that particular playlist. But the Howling movies I decided to talk about as a group here because there's not a lot to say about them, and I don't know, I want to click through watching 4, 5, and 6 because this is an Obscurus Lupa where I go in 25 minutes going through the entire movie, but just quick 5-minute reviews. So on the Howling series on the whole, since I haven't seen 7 and 8. But this is a series I'm not really a big fan of. I don't think there's any really solid entries in it, including the first one. I like the first one to a certain degree, but I also think it's really messy. I don't like it as much as American Werewolf in London. I know Ed Foyama compares it to it because they came out around the same time and were really competing werewolf movies of that particular year. American Werewolf in London now celebrating its birthday, I think today or yesterday. And I do appreciate special effects as Robert Picardo turns into Eddie the Werewolf. I love D. Wallace Stone, Christopher Stone, a couple other elements, but I never really into it as much as I want to be. 2 and 3 are cheesy fun. They're not good, but there is a heart and a love to them, especially part 3, the marsupials. Part 2 does have Reb Brown and Christopher Lee. I know it's weird putting Reb Brown before Christopher Lee, but he's always a joy to watch because he's so bad. And Christopher Lee is always so amazing. For my sister, your sister is a werewolf or werewolf bitch, depending on where you're watching it. In Howling 3, I love the werewolf nuns. I love the turn of things of the werewolves being the good guys, just want to live on their own, their colony, and the marsupial type werewolves. And it's a really cool take. And the commentary on the disc talked about how much he liked making this movie and how much you put into it. Unfortunately, that's where the series kind of after part 3 is where it really takes that dive because 4, 5, and 6 are not good. And I barely watchable. They're really cheaply shot, really cheaply done. It doesn't feel like there's any real love into them. It's something we can make on a weekend with bad special effects, bad actors, bad dubbing, and make back the $10,000 we spent on them. Howling 4 is called The Original Nightmare, made in 1988, if I remember correctly, and it's taken the same story from the first movie. If you didn't know, the series based upon books called The Howlings 1, 2, and 3, and so the first movie is adapted from The Howling, and this Howling 4, The Original Nightmare, is also adapted from The Howling, coming out apparently closer to the original novel, but it still feels like the same story, just in a different way. Instead of the reporter who needs the break goes to a town rather than a colony of people. But it's also done so cheaply. If I take back anything bad I said about The Howling 1, not really, because the Howling 4 does the same thing in a much worse way. It feels like it's really made for TV. It uses the same production values of television. It's really soft looking, really bad performance. Not to say TV is bad performances, but but it feels like a Hallmark movie. It's the same level of quality, like an 80s Hallmark movie with more sex. There's so many sex scenes in this. Like every few minutes, like they stop to have sex. But there's some interesting notes in this movie. It's filmed with no sound, like almost like an Italian movie in this case. So everything is dubbed in. I feel it's dubbed by like maybe like 2 women and 1 man, in the same way that like Manos was. So it has that same quality of weird sound, but it feels like the same way that the same man is like doing all the voices with his deep voice. And but so it makes the 2 men who look very much alike sound exactly alike. So it makes it really hard to follow which one's her husband, which one's the guy who's sitting on her, and all the townspeople kind of sound the same. So this is, if you've seen the first Howling, you probably have. You know the story where a reporter has a breakdown, so she goes far away to an area that's actually filled with werewolves, and the werewolves seduce her husband, and then everything goes tits up. But at least that one has the first one has good special effects and good acting. This one has like 1 werewolf mask. You don't even see it being used until the very end, and it's very static, and it kind of almost looks more like a were-bat, like looks like Man-Bat from Batman. He's going, he's just moving around statically, surrounded by the fire that takes over at the end, as the other werewolves kind of are there. They kind of have some makeup effects on, but they're definitely, there's no transformation scenes. Besides one, there's a melting sequence. When the husband transforms for the first time, he literally melts into a puddle, and then he reforms to a werewolf, which is actually an interesting take. It looks pretty okay, but also looks like a wax figure being melted. It almost looks like if you take like Tote from Raiders of the Lost Ark for a few minutes, and that scene almost gets it, almost makes it worth it. But every other time we see a werewolf, it's like real quick, real shots. We'll see like a static werewolf moving like in the shadow, and then we'll see it running, and running is just a dog. It's like a German Shepherd that they added some post-effect red eyes to. So it's really jarring. It's like, that's not a werewolf, that's a dog. So what's going on there? So yeah, you don't have many werewolves in your werewolf movie. The lead sounds successfully the half times. But there's like weird ways that everything cuts, like, oh, you should leave now. Oh, I'm here if you need me, but you should leave now. It's like, that's not how you end a movie scene. So it's kind of odd. Like, I gave you the exposition, the scene is over. I'm going to tell you it's over because we filmed a little bit more and we need to fill 85 minutes. So it's really repetitive dialogues too. Remember the thing you just told me? I'm going to tell you right back to you. People telling each other the same things that we already heard a couple of different times. But yeah, it's awful. I don't recommend it anyway. The Howling 5, the Rebirth, is a step up. Howling 5 and 6 are both step ups from the previous editions, but they're still bad. This one really feels like a full moon movie. Yeah. That fun was not intended until I said it. But we have a Hungarian castle that's been opened for the first time in 500 years, in which the English-sounding Hungarian prince who owns the castle is opening up, inviting a bunch of random people to come spend the weekend there, who all have the same mark, because one of them is descended from a werewolf that was left in the castle 500 years ago when everyone got killed and left as a baby, and that baby survived and had its own bloodline, and now you have the mark of the werewolf on the people. So he invites all these people in to figure out which one of them is a werewolf, because he's destined to hunt them. Which is weird. Why wait 500 years? Why even do this if the werewolf isn't aware they're a werewolf until you take him to the castle? It turns him into the werewolf. Isn't that kind of go against the entire point? And as Evan Peterson noted from 100 Days of Horror, and I posted about watching this back on its actual day, it's kind of like a slasher film, except someone in a mask. Well, it's a werewolf mask, but instead of someone in a mask, a werewolf is killing the people, and they're trying to figure out which one of them is a werewolf. I'll give you a hint. It's very obvious. Very, very obvious. Entire time you're watching, like, it's that person. It's that person's a werewolf. Stop arguing about it. See a lot of people just bitching and moaning at each other as they go down in the catacombs stupidly to go down there with a bunch of sequences. We just take turns of who's going down there, and then one of them gets killed. Everyone back argues over who was alone and who wasn't. It's the one person who's been alone the entire time, who keeps turning into werewolf apparently at will. This is a controlled werewolf situation. The effects are awful. There's barely any werewolfness to it. Um, the funniest thing is that there's two servants at the castle who don't speak any English, but keep going and following everyone around. So I wonder what's going through their heads. Everyone's speaking English to each other because none of them from Hungary. So wonder why these servants are walking. I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're going down here. It's kind of weird in that case, but it's definitely more entertaining than Howling 4. But also it's kind of a slog that way. And Howling 6 from 1991 is called The Freaks, and it's a werewolf versus vampire movie that should be more interesting than it actually is. It's an interesting idea. I love the idea behind this movie, in which a werewolf, in the way of same of the Incredible Hulk, goes to different locations because he'll go to a place, he'll help out for a while, then he's like, I'm turning a werewolf, I'm going to take off, I'm going to lock myself in a room, or I'm going to go off into the woods before I transform. Ends up going to a small town where he gets kind of involved with the people involved there, when a traveling circus run by a vampire comes into town and convinces him or kidnaps him essentially to join his circus of freaks that he's been gathering together. So you get this cool idea of werewolves and other werewolves, vampires, and more freakish looking people. There's the guy who half looks like a snake. You get these other people who have these issues. Not to throw light upon people with disabilities in this case. And so you think it might be a cool idea here. You get a vampire and werewolf mixed between them who are fighting over this and fighting over this. It's an evil vampire character, and this could be interesting in that way, but it's not. It's really low production values as well. There's some decent effects. The werewolf looks okay, and I did like the main character. I liked some of the characters in the town. There is something there. So it is better than 5, which is better than 4. None of them are as good as the first 3 because they're cheap. And 6 I had on disc, but are streaming on Amazon. And watching that way, I watch on my computer a little easier as I'm walking around the house because they're boring movies, and it made me want to clean the kitchen as I watched them, which I'll fully admit to. So I don't recommend them unless you're trying to complete the series. Say, oh, I've seen all the Howling movies. If you're like me and want to complete a franchise and talk about it. So join us at 100 Days of Horror. Follow the link below to City of Geek. Watch the previous editions of Seen Them All, even though this is a mini edition, I guess, in that way. Join us at 100 Days of Horror. Talk about what you're seeing. It's okay to join now. We're 35 days in or so. In real life, this is videos 23 to 25, but join us. I'll still post it. It's always fun to watch things, and maybe you can catch up. So hit that bell, subscribe, join us 100 Days of Horror. We're going to see Ready or Not tonight. I don't know if I mentioned that in this video or the last one. I just did 2 of these at once. So watch for that to see what everyone thinks about that. And we'll see you next time. And I don't remember exactly what's the next movie, but we'll talk about those tomorrow. Thank you. Have a great one.